How's it rockin', Dween Nation? This is the Dween Sports Podcast. We're about to get underway. But before we do, we'd love if you could like, comment, subscribe, or share. We are posting weekly sports content, and we want to build up the brand that is Dween Sports. Thank you all, and enjoy.
Welcome in, Dween Nation. This is your host, Justin Pies, alongside Genoa Agudelo. And today, we are talking some NBA. The All-Star break is over, and we're looking forward to the rest of the regular season. Who's going to win some of these awards down the line, the rest of the regular season? And then, of course, we're going to discuss some playoffs and kind of predict our way, as of today, what we think would happen and who would be the next, winner of the NBA Finals. And I'm really excited. We haven't had too much NBA besides our big trade talk episode a couple of weeks ago at the deadline, which was a great episode. We had Brandon Etheridge on the show. We talked about Luka, De'Aaron Fox, Jimmy Buckets, and more. So that was a fun episode. Go check it out if you didn't see it and aren't caught up to it. But if you're curious now, after the All-Star break, how is my team looking? Where do we think, these certain players are doing throughout the year, and how's it going to factor into the playoffs? This is the episode to watch. But before we dive into everything, how you doing, Genoa?
Yo, Dween Nation. Justin, I'm doing good. It's officially the road to the finals. We already said goodbye on our NFL content, so Dween Nation, if you want to check that out, go ahead. But right now, Justin, we're moving forward. This is basketball season. A little something in the middle to get us ready for some NFL free agency and draft. But we love the NFL playoffs there. We don't want to undermine that. We want to give that just as much attention, Justin. And with that Luka trade that happened a few weeks ago, Justin, that proves that taking out the Celtics, this league is wide open, right?
Yeah.
I mean, these teams, really the only two teams that are like most seasoned, most veteran is Denver on the West because they won the title 2 years ago, and the Celtics, right? And so, Justin, this league is wide open. Not to mention the teams, the players we're going to talk about. It's brand new. We got a new leader in the MVP conversation there. We got some new talent there as far as defensive player of the year. It's not the same old Rudy Gobert and whoever else. And so I'm excited. This is going to be a fun run to the playoffs, Justin. Not only that, I have to throw some bias in there, Justin. My baby Rockets, they're no longer baby Rockets. They're teen Rockets. They're not they're like they're be able to shoot some Rockets there. They got some fire, they got some power to them. And so it's exciting time to be the Rockets fan. Honestly, guys, the NBA is just a little bit better when the Rockets are competitive. You know what I'm saying? Just a little bit.
Sure.
I mean.
No, man, I'm super excited to discuss everything. It does feel better to have your hometown team back into the race of the playoffs. And although they're on a little bit of a slump as of the last, few weeks.
10 games.
They lost, 6 in a row at one point. But, hey, after the All-Star break, everybody's re-energized, refreshed, and ready to go. And that's what we want to discuss throughout this first half of the year and on to the rest. We're going to predict some awards. Who do we think at this point of the year and what we project out for the rest of the season? Who do we think is going to win each of these awards? And we'll start at the very tippity top with the MVP, which it's pretty unanimous, at least in this room right here, that we think Shai Gilgeous-Alexander deserves the nod for MVP because he's on the number one team in the West. He averages the most points per game. He's second in steals, and he's just a leader. He's leading that team to some big wins, and they're one of the scariest, if not the scariest team in the NBA. And you've seen the growth for years and years after the big bombshell trade where he got sent to the Thunder, Paul George got sent to the Clippers. The franchise was born right there, and with all those draft picks and Chet Holmgren, Jalen Williams, and more, now OKC is looking really great, and SGA is looking like the best player in basketball. What do you think?
Justin, just real quick, it is so crazy to think that a guy in Paul George, who was drafted by the Pacers, right? Then he goes to Oklahoma City. I think he only spent like a year, 2 years the most there. Gets traded. Jerry West, RIP, one of the best executives in NBA history, makes the trade to get Shai, a young Shai from Clippers. Mind you, a lot of people don't know that Shai Gilgeous-Alexander on the Clippers was not bad as a rookie. I believe they made the playoffs in 2018. If you guys remember, that was that Clipper team before Kawhi, before Paul George. It was led by Lou Will, Pat Bev, Montrezl Harrell. There were kind of the new Clippers on the block there. And Shai was that new rookie. And I don't know if you guys remember Landry Shamet. I think he was on that team as well. And they gave the reigning champion Warriors that year with Kevin Durant. I think they might have added DeMarcus Cousins that year. I could be mistaken. In his prime, Shea Gilgeous-Alexander led this Clippers team to like a Game 5 comeback in Golden State and Oracle. I remember it was like a 25, 30-point lead, Justin, and him and that Clippers team just went on fire. Now, of course, the Warriors went on to win that series. They had Kevin Durant who went bonkers in Game 6. However, this young team with Shea, I mean, that was like some foreshadowing. Now, Shea is the guy. I mean, 2 years ago, this Thunder team was in the play-in. And then last year they lose to Dallas, who ended up going to the finals, who traded Luka. But Shea is the guy now. The Thunder, the rebuild is now complete. They're now competing, and I agree with you, Justin. Shea should be. I wouldn't say unanimous because Jokic is playing really well this year as well, and the Nuggets are a top 3 to 4 team in the West. But Justin, you got to remember that Chet Holmgren, their second, third best player. He missed a good month and a half. I think he's now back.
Right.
But Shea was able to hold it down and still lead the league in scoring, still have the Thunder in the number 1 seed. And then look at the roster they're working with, right? Looking at the other centers in the West, you got Memphis, who's got young Zach Edey, who's got promise, right? You got my Rockets, who got Sengun. You got the Nuggets, who have Jokic, and so you got the Kings that got on and on and on. But they got Isaiah Hartenstein here, who isn't bad. Had a good last year with the Knicks. But he has 12 rebounds on the year. But is he a center that can stop Jokic in the playoffs? If they were to make the finals, I mean, I think Alpha Horford for the Celtics can give them the business. I mean, if they face the Cavaliers in the finals, they still got Jared Allen and Evan Mobley. So Hartenstein is an exceptional center, not one of the best or premier or elite centers that we look at. And so Shea's able to do it, right? And this is the roster, right? Jalen Williams, he's a really good 2. He's averaging 21 points on the game in the season. Chet Holmgren, he's only played 13 games of the year, while Shea's played 53. So Chet Holmgren in 13 games is barely getting to 15. It's just this team is really well orchestrated in a G League kind of way where they got some good shooters. Not talking down the Thunder. They got some good shooters. They got some good players. But is this really a great bench to challenge Denver or Boston or other teams that you might have to run across that are more experienced, right? I want to throw Dallas in there, but for obvious reasons we can't. But anyways, down to Shea, Justin. He has been possibly the best player this year. The Thunder are back and being the number 1 seed as they were with those years with KD and Russ. And the players on this depth chart, they're not the most enticing, they're not the most interesting, flashy, but they get the job done, and Shea is their leader.
Yeah, I completely agree. Well, I'm excited when we get to that playoff predictions to discuss how we think they'll fare against these other teams in the West, but I agree that Shea's been great and he deserves MVP as of right now, and how we think the rest of the season is going to play out. On to Coach of the Year, where we are split. I have Taylor Jenkins of the Memphis Grizzlies because they're one of the teams that have been slept on. They missed the playoffs last year because John Morant got injured, missed the rest of the season. But they come into this year and there was no big signees or anything like that. They're there and they're stepping up. And Taylor Jenkins deserves a lot of credit as their leader, as their coach. They're second in the West, and the West is a very difficult place to play. So I got Taylor Jenkins.
You know what, Justin? I have an NFL comparison. Taylor Jenkins is the Kevin O'Connell of the NBA, right? He kind of wins with what he has. Don't you see it a little bit?
Yeah.
I mean, he's got a star, flashy player, right? You got John Morant and Jefferson. But then you got players that you're not always too sure about, the Dylan Brooks. And you got guys like Luke Kennard there and Vince Williams and Jalen Wills, which is not bad. But then you got some good defensive players there, right? Like Kevin O'Connell has in Minnesota. And then over here in Memphis, you got those itty-gritty players. And I think that these two coaches, right, the comparison, they're itty, they're gritty. They have that one kind of flashy player, and then they kind of work with whatever else is around them. They grit. They still win games. They still make the playoffs. And last year was really not his fault. I think he did the best he can. I mean, they had literally teenagers playing for them at the end of the season, I believe. I think at one point, Justin, they had 8 players out for 3 or 4 games. I don't know if you got G.G. Jackson is still on the team. I remember he started with a couple other players that you probably never heard of, and he was still able to win some games. And it's just very interesting that Taylor Jenkins is one of the most underrated coaches in the league. I mean, looking at the roster here, John Morant is a superstar, no doubt about it. But Desmond Bane has become one of the most, anticipating 3-point shooters we've seen. He's really good, Justin. No one really talks about that. And then Jaren Jackson Jr. is as good as it comes. When you're talking about power forwards in the league, he literally can do it all, Justin, as a power forward. He can shoot, he can defend. I mean, literally, he can get rebounds, he can get blocks. He's very humble, he's very quiet, he's a good team player. I love Jaren Jackson Jr. He's one of my personal favorite players that does not get talked about. My favorite, like, non-Rocket players. He plays well. And then they draft Zach Edey, who, I mean, this Memphis franchise for years, when they had, Lionel Hollins as their head coach with Mike Conley and Marcus Gasol and Tony Allen, those guys, Grizzlies has always been that tough team, that defensive team. Once upon a time, Justin, I believe that they did knock down the mighty Spurs, the dynastic Spurs, in the first round. So it's like this franchise has always had that grit about them. Not too many flashy players. I think, Taylor Jenkins is a really good coach. For me, I'm going to go with the Cavaliers coach, and that is Kenny Atkinson. For those who don't not really familiar with him, he was an assistant for a couple years in the past couple years with Golden State. Before then, I think he was most known in Brooklyn before the Harden, KD, Kyrie era. I think they had D'Lo. I can't remember anybody other players on those teams. Maybe they had Jared Allen, who now Jared Allen's on the Cavaliers with Kenny Atkinson, they were formerly in Brooklyn. And so I think it works. Looking at what the Cavs are, I mean, I think it's time for this team it was time that this team took the next step and became one of those top contenders in the East, right? They're 44-10 on the season, and their roster is really good, right? You get Donovan Mitchell, Spida, who's always been good in this league, right? You got Darius Garland, who's a promising point guard. He's gotten paid already, and he's played well night in and night out. I love me some Evan Mobley. I remember when the Rockets were in talks of getting him. I don't remember who we got that draft. It might have been the Amen Thompson draft, I could be mistaken. They also have, I think they have DeAndre Hunter on there now, which is really good. Jaron Allen is a solid. And I think they just traded Karis LeVert, who, I mean, they got some pieces for him. But regardless, Kenny Atkinson, I mean, they've been a really good team this year. They're the only threat, in my opinion, to the Celtics in the East. Maybe the Knicks, just because that New York and Boston rivalry. But those three teams right there are one of those three teams are going to be in the East Finals. But Kenny Atkinson has developed a really good defensive rating for this team. Donovan Mitchell, 24 points per game, with Darius Garland, 22 points per game. He's making these stars work because even Evan Mobley's averaging almost 19 points per game there, which is really good. How a coach can really distribute the stars and have them have different games, have different assigned games where they go off and stuff like that. So I like Kenny Atkinson there. I think that if they were to face the Celtics, and the possibility if they were to beat the Celtics, I believe it will not be through the offense. It will not be because Donovan Mitchell. I believe it's because Kenny Atkinson's defense, through Mobley, through Allen, through his formations. That will be the reason why, and the only reason why, if the Cavaliers were to knock off the Celtics. But I like Kenny Atkinson for sure if they don't make the finals as my coach of the year.
No, I love the Atkinson as the pick here. I mean, it's his first year, right, with the Cavs since they got rid of JB Bickerstaff. So you come in now. You inherited a really good roster: Garland, Mitchell, Mobley, Allen, as you were mentioning. They now just make the trade for Hunter, which is a huge underrated, acquisition. So he's got the roster, but he's making it work. They are tied for the best record in basketball with the Thunder. So I completely agree. He should be right in the conversation. You can throw in the Thunder coach. He's a baller as well. I mean, there's a number of good coaches, I think, that are deserving this year. And Ime Udoka has been thrown out there too for the Rockets. But I do like Atkinson as one of the top tier ones there. Now we'll jump into, I guess, the next two are kind of aligned here. We got the sixth man of the year, which we both go with Amen Thompson of the Rockets. Obviously, he if you watch the Rockets, they're a bunch of young bucks that are flying under the radar. They're playing really scrappy defense, and they, despite this little their mess ups as of recently, Amen Thompson's been that guy. He had that big game against the Celtics, won a game winner in their house, and he's just been really great on the defensive end, on the offensive end. Coming into this year, man, he's not even starting, and they got Dylan Brooks, they got Jabari Smith, Fred VanVleet, of course, Jalen Green, and Sengun as the starting five, and he gets to roll right in there after them, and he's been great, and that's what we got. What do you think though with Amen?
Yeah, Justin, I'm sorry, but now that my Rockets are good, I gotta throw one Rocket in these awards. I mean, even if it's Ime Udoka as a coach or Jalen Green slash Sengun as my MVP, obviously that, but or even like Dylan Brooks as my Defensive Player of the Year, like something wild. But whatever where the shoe fits, I think Amen Thompson. If we had to give a Rocket an award this year, it's Amen Thompson because the starting lineup involves with Fred VanVleet, Jalen Green, Dylan Brooks, and then obviously our bigs. Once we get Jabari to pair along with Sagoon back, and I feel like Amen Thompson he's here. Like he is our future at the point guard position. It's crazy to see that like as tall as Jalen Green is, Dwayne Nation. If you've seen Jalen Green, he is a tall, lanky shooting guard. But Amen Thompson is just as tall, though not taller, and it's crazy because Amen Thompson just looks shorter. He's a point guard, but no, he is taller. And he kind of reminds me of a young Pistons Isaiah Thomas. I just feel like he's got that scrap to him. He's got the the little technicals there. He can shoot. He can play defense. He can pass. You don't really expect for him to have 20, 25 every night. You just want him to make an impact on the game. And I love how Udoka is developing these players. And so I got to give my boy Amen Thompson who, man, I wish he was a rookie because, man, he would be a Rookie of the Year. But I got to give a Rocket, and, hey, I'm happy with it.
Yeah, no, he completely deserves it. I know there's some other names, Peyton Pritchard, DeAndre Hunter, but the way the Rockets are looking, and, Hunter just got traded to the Cavs as of a couple weeks ago, so that kind of can be different depending on how they're going to use him. That's why we have Amon there because of his defense mainly, and that'll transition us to the Defensive Player of the Year, which we are both aligned as well because this guy has been phenomenal. We're talking about Victor Wembanyama for the Spurs. I mean, when you have that frame and that height and that just everything that he brings, you're gonna be a defensive juggernaut, and he is doing so. 3.8 blocks per game, over just around 1.5 blocks more than the next player. It's unstoppable. I mean, how do you even do anything around him? Is the decision. I mean, I don't even know, and that's what makes it such an easy decision. That was why Rudy Gobert was so dominant for years. He's a lengthy big man, and now you got another French guy rolling in here, and Victor Wembanyama. So yeah, he deserves the award, and we agree. But what do you think?
Yeah, Justin, honestly, I mean, there's really no doubt that this guy's going to win multiple Defensive Player of the Years. I mean, we're thinking one of many, right? I mean, Michael Jordan won multiple MVPs, multiple scoring titles. It started at a young age. So this is kind of like what's going to be for Wemby. He's winning his first Defensive Player of the Year in his second year in the league. And then, you know what? He's going to win multiple. So he might have 6 or 7 by the time he hangs it up. And he could win a finals with playing, you talk about the greats of San Antonio, Tim Duncan, you got David Robinson, you got all these anchors, you got LaMarcus Aldridge, who was there for some time. And these guys play defense. They were some great Spurs. Some of them won championships, and he is the next big man. It kind of reminds me of, you never seen Star Wars, right? Where it's Darth Vader, he's dominated, but he's no longer there. And they have the new guy, Kylo Ren. He's flashy. He's entertaining. He's very charismatic. And so he's the future of the franchise. That's how I see Wemby. You know what I'm saying? They went from Darth Vader to Kylo Ren and to Tim Duncan to Wembanyama. And this guy's, you know what, Justin? If you want to question who is going to be the face of the league after LeBron retires, after Steph Curry retires, after Kevin Durant retires, no doubt it's going to be Wembanyama. Yes, you might think Ant or Luka, or you might think that Jokic is already or Giannis is already the face of the league. I think it's going to be Wemby. I think this guy is going to influence a new era of kids, of basketball for the kids, a younger generation. That's going to be their LeBron growing up. And we might have arguments, no, LeBron was, but no, it's Wemby. And so this guy, no doubt, I think he leads the league, like you mentioned, 4 blocks. He gets you 11 rebounds. And so I think defensive rebounds, he gets you about almost 10, which is absolutely crazy. So, hey, Defensive Player of the Year, no doubt.
Yeah, I mean, if anybody's leading the Spurs to a next dynasty run, it'll be this guy. So
absolutely,
he definitely deserves the award this year for Defensive Player. Jumping to Rookie of the Year, I'm going to actually continue with one of his teammates in Stephon Castle. He's been phenomenal. He's such an electric player, brings the energy for the Spurs unit. And even though they have De'Aaron Fox also in the backcourt, Castle's been great. He leads rookies in points per game. He's tied for first for rookies in steals. And I mean, he's only going to get better. I mean, I love the system that the team that the Spurs are building up, and that's without Greg Popovich, who's still out, right, with his health
Yeah.
scare. So this team is looking really great. You got some veterans to help you out with Chris Paul and De'Aaron Fox to help grow with Stephon Castle, and the way he's looked through the first half of the year, these next 2 months, it's only going to get better, and that's why I have him as my rookie of the year.
Yeah, Justin, talk about these Spurs of the future. They just traded for De'Aaron Fox. They can put him at the 2 with Castle at the 1, with Wemby. And Castle, I mean, he's really always been kind of a great player. Not to mention, he just won Rising Stars Challenge MVP just on Saturday. And so he is not only that, he is a national champion, reigning
Right.
national champion with the Yukon Huskies there. And you know what, Justin? This guy has been a McDonald's All-American. I mean, what's next for this guy? I mean, really, he is underrated. He is averaging 13 points per game there, and a team that has Wemby and just got De'Aaron Fox and Chris Paul is there, and it's amazing. That's really impressive. Not to mention, you add there that Popovich is not there. You don't have the coach for the Spurs right now. I'm not too familiar with him. However, they're still making it work, and so you're not getting the superb critiques of Greg Popovich there, and so that's really interesting. I don't want to be the same. I know we've kind of picked the same in some topics. So I'm going to go another route, and I'm going to talk about Zach Edey as my pick of the year for rookie. I feel like he is the anchor that Memphis needed. They've had some injuries at the center position. They got the parted ways with Adams. I'm not too sure what Brandon Clark is doing nowadays. I haven't really heard from him. He was one of those. I think he's still on the team, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know if I've heard of Brandon Clark in some time. And so they kind of needed that anchor, that center. They had Jonas Valanciunas all those years, as long as they've had Marcus Gasol in the previous, era. And so, Memphis has always kind of had that big man, and it made sense to get a guy that faced, Stephon Castle in that national championship game, I believe, with Purdue. Zach Edey was a guy that we really loved. He was like one of the darlings. What was that guy from NC State too, Justin, that everyone loved?
DJ Burns.
DJ Burns. Yeah. See, those are the darlings of last year. And, I'm glad to see you don't see this too often where the darlings of the NCAA tournament, you don't really see them get drafted, right? Like Jimmy Fredette and guys like that. Like, you don't see them get drafted. Like the Tyus Jones, like they get drafted. They're darlings, but they're not really prioritized like Zach Edey is. And I'm glad to see what he's going to be able to do with this Memphis franchise going forward. They got John Morant there, which the GM today confirmed we're not trading him. And they got Desmond Bane, who's a shooter. So this guy is no doubt the rookie of the year, I think, just because is that he's got all the target share, like a football term. He's got all the, he's the starting center. He's got to go through all the top players. They got to go through his pain compared to Castle, where he's got a lot of options on his team. So he doesn't really need all the shine. So I like Edey there just because he's a center. I think that he's potentially going to also be a defensive player that could, in many years to come, Justin, he will be in that standings with Wemby. Like, we might have that debate every year. Oh, who's going to win the Defensive Player of the Year? Is it Edey? Is it Wemby? I think that Edey does have some time to grow and mature and to develop, but definitely he is my pick this year for Rookie of the Year.
No, I think it's a great one. I mean, he's top 5 in just about every category for rookies stats besides assists. He gets boards, he gets points. He's got the highest, plus minus for a rookie. And so, I mean, when you're part of the team that's second in the West, it's great, and they need it. They need that piece. Obviously, they have Jaren Jackson, who's in the front court, but he's more of the power forward type. Well, you got Edey right there at center to step in and be your guy there. So I think that's great. He's been, and as you mentioned, centers with that imposing force. Him and Wemby are going to go head to head for years. I like that there. And then our last award that we're going to give out is Most Improved Player. And for me, I have a guy who's been around the block for a pretty long time now. I believe he joined the NBA in 2015, so he's on his 10th season, going on his 10th season. I'm talking about Norman Powell. I mean, a guy who has been known as a bench player, kind of a six man, maybe like a fourth fiddle on a team, is now really stepping up for the Clippers. He started every game this year. He's, career highs in points, career highs and oh my gosh, in steals. I mean, he is killing it. And the Clippers are right there in the playoff picture. I think he's been great. I know there's a lot of people that are kind of up for this award, but Norman Powell is a guy who I think even should have got an all-star bid because he's been really great. And I know James Harden has kind of been leading the team. He does that everywhere. But Norman Powell, man, he's scoring right up there with him, and I think he might deserve this award.
Yeah, Justin, I like Norman Powell. He's been around, and he was kind of that type of player when he was on the Raptors.
Yep.
And he's a solid option there in Los Angeles. Now that they've traded Terrence Mann, Justin, I think they also traded Kevin Porter Jr.
Right.
And so I think that now that definitely bumps up his status there to be, most improved player. For me, I'm going to go with Cade Cunningham, and I'm just going to run you down the years real quick. His rookie year, he played 64 games, 17 points average. His second year, he only played 12 games, and so that crosses out. And then last year, he played 62 games, 62. Right now, he's played already 50.
Yeah.
So a 12-game difference, and we just finished All-Star break. That's really good for the health of Cade Cunningham. So that's number one. Secondly, Justin, this is career high in assists. So his first year, he averaged 5.5 assists, and then the second year we don't count. He's only played 12 games. Last year, he averaged 7 assists. This year, he is on pace to average 10 assists per game there. 9.5 assists right now there. I think he's top 5 in the league. Really impressive there to get his guys involved. And that's what makes you most improved, right? It's not always the scoring. It's how you become a leader, how you lead your franchise. And this is a former number 1 pick overall, right? And, he had some struggle years. Obviously, the last 2 years, the Pistons were possibly the laughing stock of the league. I don't know if you remember Kuzma's, quote, you just want to not be that team. And so now they're not that team, right? They're winning games. They're playing well as a team. And so I really like Cade Cunningham there. He's impressed me this year. 25 points per game and almost 10 assists. He is almost averaging a double-double there. Impressive there. Not to mention he is grabbing 6 boards per game. So really good. If you're playing for the Pistons, I love it. Give me Cade Cunningham as my most improved player unanimously.
I think it's a great choice. And that and Norman Powell, the reason I went Norman Powell is because he's always been that six man, like that, never the star. And now he's jumped up to being one of the stars on the Clippers. But Cade Cunningham has been great. I mean, as you mentioned, his highest points per game of his career, rebounds and assists, and now Detroit's actually not dog crap anymore. They're actually in the playoff picture. I mean, were they not the bottom 2 to 3 teams in the East?
I think they won 25, 30 games in 2 years, maybe
awful.
40. Yeah, that's
just
terrible, guys.
Bad. But as you mentioned, Cade Cunningham, he's playing a lot of games this year. He's only missed 5 games, and he's their leader. He is their leader. They have a lot of young pieces as well. Jalen Duren, Jaden Ivey, Malik Beasley's been around a little bit, but he's kind of their sixth man as well. You got Asar Thompson, so you got some young guys, Marcus Sasser, a couple vets, and Tobias Harris as well. But you're right, Cade Cunningham has been great, and finally that number 1 overall pick, you got to step into that role, and this is the year he's really done so. So I think that's a great pick there, and they're finally in the playoffs. They're even past the play-in. They're at the 6th seed right now. So
that's really good.
Good for Detroit. And Dwee Nation, we're going to do a playoff predictions episode, but we're going to cut it here and then jump to that. So you guys get 2 episodes for the price of 1, which is free. But anyway, thank you guys for listening. Let us know your thoughts. Who do you think is going to win these awards when it comes to the end of the regular season? So check us out. And Genoa, send us out.
Yo, Dwee Nation, this was our predictions for the awards mid-season, right after All-Star break. Check us out in the next episode, and thanks for watching. We love you guys, and we'll see you soon. Love you guys, and
peace.